I'm sure you've heard of supply and demand, two boring lines on a graph. But what if I told you that this information is actually useful to you? You can use these two variables in your business and it will save you a lot of work. Because supply and demand determines how the market works. When you understand supply and demand, you understand the whole market. So in this video I'll tell you what these two variables are, how they work, and most importantly, how to use them in practice. So sit back and let's get started. Number 1. Supply. The supply is the lighter of the two. Basically, this is all the seller offers to buyers, so when you walk into a store, all they offer is a supply. This applies to e-shops as well. What is offered for money is a supply. Easy, right? How to mark it on a chart. We've got a standard chart, horizontally for quantity and vertically for price. Supply is marked on the chart as S. It's usually a line going slightly up from left to right, but it doesn't have to be. The so-called law of supply applies here. As the price increases, the quantity offered increases. I'll explain it with apples, for example. As the price per pound of apples increases, the number of apples we can buy also increases. The higher the price, the more apples. That makes sense. Number 2. Demand. Demand is a little harder to understand because we cannot physically see it. Demand is the willingness of customers to buy a given product at a given price. So if we say that demand is high, then many people are willing to buy a given product at a given price. How to write demand in a graph. Again, standard graph, horizontally quantity and vertically price. Demand is denoted by the letter D. This is usually a line going slightly from right to left. The law of demand applies here. As the price of a good increases, the quantity demanded decreases. The more the apples cost, the less people want to buy them. Sounds pretty logical. So far it's pretty simple, but now I'm going to show you the conflict between supply and demand and how you can actually take advantage of it as an entrepreneur. Number 3. Conflict between supply and demand. The clash between supply and demand is probably the most important thing that comes out of all this. The clash shapes the equilibrium price, and that is the most important thing you need when selling. Before I show you this on the chart, let me tell you what it's actually for. So if you own a business and you want to market your product, you need to price it appropriately. Because if you price it too high, nobody's going to buy it. If you price it too low, you're not going to make any money. It's important to price your product appropriately, and that's what supply and demand is for. The first thing you do is add up all the costs for the month. You add to that the profit you'd like to make. But definitely don't overdo it with the amount of profit. The higher you set your profit, the more one product will cost and the less people will want to buy it. I recommend setting this profit as a percentage and not a specific amount. It has its advantages, because if your costs go up or you want to produce more, you just calculate a percentage. Then you just divide that amount by the number of products and you have the gross price per product. But where's the supply and demand? Just wait till we use it in a minute. That's how you price your product and put it into production. During the first week or month, try out different prices and write down how much is sold at each price. Now make a spreadsheet in which you add these values. Make 3 columns for price, quantity offered, and quantity demanded. As an example, imagine an entrepreneur, a farmer who sells our favorite apples. He has 100 apples for each day, so at the beginning of each day there are exactly 100 apples in the store. So we'll add 100 to all the rows in the offer column. During the first week of business, he tried different prices of $1, $2, and $3 per apple. I'm sure you're thinking that $3 per apple is a ridiculous price, and you're right, these prices are made up just to make it easier to count. We'll add the prices to the price column. Now, using the first week's survey, we'll add the number of apples out of 100 that were sold at that price. At a price of $3 per apple, 20 apples per 100 were sold, and at a price of $2 per apple, 50 apples per 100 were sold. But now it may be the case that the quantity demanded is greater than the quantity offered. Customers find the price of $1 per apple extremely good, and all 100 apples were sold in half a day. If 100 apples are sold in half a day, then 200 apples would be sold in a whole day, so let's add that to the table. Now we have the table done and we can make a graph. We'll simply plot the graph by the values. Once the graph is done, we can determine the equilibrium price. We find the intersection of these lines and find out what the equilibrium price is. According to my calculations, it's about $1.74. The most ideal price for one apple is therefore $1.74. To make your calculations accurate, I recommend using the program GeoGebra, which will calculate it exactly. This way we have arrived at the ideal price. Remember how I said at the beginning that the supply is usually a line going slightly from left to right? But this line doesn't seem to meet that. Then why doesn't it meet it? It's because we bid the same amount every day. Because when manufacturers adjust prices, it often affects quantity. So if they offer expensive apples, they must be of higher quality and cost more money to produce than the low-cost ones. So that you understand the principle, I didn't want to include it in the example. If you would like to make a graph with different supply, you just plug in different values to the supply and make a graph as in the previous example. If you didn't get it right away, don't give up and watch the video again. It is good to have this knowledge even if you are not planning to start a business. Supply and demand is one of the basics of economics, and you may find this knowledge useful at some point. If you are more interested in economy, I have a video on this topic so you can watch it, link in the description. If you have any questions about this video or want to know more about something, write in the comments. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please give like and subscribe to let me know to keep making videos like this. You can find more interesting videos on my channel. Thanks for watching and see you next time.